name is Shalom Miller, also known as Jay Storm, and I am a music producer. I was born in New Brunswick, New Jersey. I grew up in a lot of different parts of New Jersey. Plainfield is where I predominantly grew up and went to school. I grew up in a household of musicians and singers, and it was just me and my sister, in the house as the two sibs. My father was a music director at our church. He was a key player organist. My mother was a gospel singer. Growing up in that household definitely sparked my journey into music. Listening to what we call secular music wasn't allowed. One night when I went down into our home studio and I turned on the TV, a show called Video Music Box came on. A black and white video came on, and immediately it captured me because of the different melodies. I hadn't felt or heard anything like that combination of drums and melody. And then when the chorus came on, it was just magical for me. And the video was Pete Rock and Nas, The World Is Yours. That was the first moment that I really connected with hip hop, because prior to that, I wasn't allowed to listen to hip hop music coming from a church background. My father had a business and in repossession. He repossessed a car one day, and in the car there was a book of CDs. The person never came to guide it, so my father just gave it to me. There was everything in it. That CD book became like my Bible. There was everything from Dog Style to Wu-Tang to every CD you can imagine from the early 90s to, mid-late 90s at that time. So I would study this, and I really began to understand cadences and rap cadences and the different styles that came with rapping, and I would mimic them and memorize the raps. I hadn't started writing yet, but eventually, I ventured. Once I started listening to Jay-Z Reasonable Doubt, which was the first album I got stuck on, I really started playing around with, inventing my own words and things like that. And that led me into writing my own rhymes. And I quickly became good at it, humbly speaking. But, I wanted to pursue becoming a rapper. That led me to some really cool opportunities later on in my teens. I think about 15 years old when I moved to East Orange, New Jersey. I partnered with one of my classmates, and we formed a rap group called Untamed. We would go perform at high school talent shows. We got picked up by a local record label. I think he was like a subsidiary, like Universal or something like that. What I found quickly is that I had to do more than just rap, because my partner was more talented than me in the rap area, and he made beats. So I said, let me learn how to make beats. And, I started playing around with I can't remember, maybe it was like an old MPC or something like that. But that was my journey into making beats. And, after I moved from East Orange, again, I met another friend in my junior or senior year at Plainfield High School. And he introduced me to a program called Youth Entertainment Academy, which was funded by the George Bush administration. In that program, they had a really cool studio and a Triton keyboard. And my friend kept encouraging me to come to this program, and, we would make beats. And at that time I was rapping, so I would rap to the beats. That led us to meeting different people. People were really impressed with our ability to produce. And eventually, this person introduced us to that person, and so on and so forth. And it led us to meeting Missy Elliott. Yeah, that program was everything to me. It's why I'm so passionate about mentorship and leadership in music specifically now, because prior to joining that program, I wasn't on the best course for, a 16, 17-year-old kid. I had shown some talent with basketball. I had an opportunity to go to Rider University on a scholarship, but I had gotten into some trouble that disqualified me from the program. So after I moved from that town, going to Plainfield was kind of like a fresh start. My friend, Matt Major, introduced me to the Youth Entertainment Academy. That really put me on a great path. It put me on a right path. And having great mentors in that program, like Brian McCarthy, aka DJ Cuts, and his wife, his now wife, Angela, they were super impactful. They were supportive. My partner Major and I, we didn't always follow the rules in the program. A lot of times we would cut school and sneak into the back door and things like that to get in there. And when he found out, because he understood our passion and our talent, he wasn't too hard on us, but and he really supported us, and he was a lot of the reason why we are and I am where I am today, because he allowed people to come in who were interested in checking out our sound And he actually introduced us to a lot of people who, passed on our names, which gave us great opportunities. So having a program like that and having great mentors like that is a lot of the reason why I'm able to be speaking to you today. Yeah, I went to school, but it wasn't until later. By the time I decided to go to school, I tried going to school at the Institute of Audio Research in New York. I thought about it. My interest level wasn't there at the time. I was more interested because I had some opportunities on the table. Right after that, my career kind of took off with the production deal I had with Missy Elliott. It wasn't until 2009 when I moved to Nashville and I had to reset that I decided that I wanted to go to school. I needed something to do. I needed somewhere where I can, work on music and build my brand in a new city. And that was a great way for me to do it. Several years later, I decided to continue my education at Berklee College of Music. And it's been a great journey being a student again and relearning and learning a lot of new things. A lot of the technical aspects get covered in school, but I think one thing that's most important is the personal development aspect of being in the music business. I don't think a lot of courses cover that because it's really tough to cover that if you don't have that experience, because going through the music business can be so nuanced. I'm an advocate for really learning how to nurture your code of ethics. We're so fascinated with the creative process and the glitz and the glamour of it all that we overlook how to stabilize your mentality, your spirituality, so that you have a well-balanced journey through it. And, as we see, a lot of people go through it, they get the success, but they don't keep it because a lot of times not because of the business, but it's because of personal issues. So I think having a course that really focuses on, personal development and things, building your code of ethics would really have been helpful for me as I went on my journey and my process through the music industry. It was a crash course, but I was covered by a lot of big brother figures like Rashad Muhammad, who, overlooked or guided me through a lot of my early mistakes. And even the Soul Diggers production team, they were an area where I can still be productive, but make a lot of the mistakes that I needed to make in order to learn, what I needed to learn. So having that, was very important. And without it, I wouldn't have learned the valuable lessons that I learned. So I'm definitely an advocate for really finding your tribe and finding mentors that will allow you to make the necessary mistakes that you need to make and really develop. A lot of times, I considered, going to get a quote unquote real job. And, at the time I'm getting older, I'm approaching my 20s. So my father agreed with me that it was time for me to, really focus on maybe a career, going back to school and things like that. And I had a lot of opportunities. I considered going to barber school and even culinary school. Those were some opportunities for me. Talking to, a lot of people that were supporting me, they really believed in me and they believed that I was very close to really doing something impactful. And I believed it too. So I had to really sacrifice. I had to make a lot of sacrifices, girlfriends, a lot of my peers were going to college. And that was my college experience, really being in the music industry and really having that crash course, so to speak. Now, it's not for everybody, but I think I made the right choice for where I was at. I always knew I had something. People around me always knew that I had that it factor, so to speak. When you're homeless and you're on the New Jersey Transit bus, riding over to stay at a friend's house, it's not always the best situation to convince you that you're doing the right thing for yourself. I remember days when I would actually be on the bus and, be depressed and to the point of tears because I wanted to make it, so to speak, so badly, and it wasn't happening the way that I thought it would. And I was still a struggling artist or struggling producer waiting on my big break. And this is, while I'm signed to Missy Elliott. So a lot of times I doubted myself if I was making the right choice, if I was doing the right thing. And the answer would come back no a lot of the time. And that would cause me to really have to self-reflect and figure out, what the hell I was doing. I think ultimately it came down to my surroundings. I was surrounded by, to this day, some of the most talented people. And I think that's really important, what you surround yourself with and what you look at every day. I had no choice but to keep going because I was surrounded by people that I admired, by people that a crazy admiration for, and these people are telling me that I'm dope. So there was something there, and I think the main thing was when I listened to my music, I knew it was something special. I knew it was different. I knew I had something, and that's what really inspired me. Just listening to my own music, I knew it was, this isn't the normal thing, and this is gonna do something impactful, and it's gonna make a way for me. And I had great peers and great support system, building me up, telling me, nah, Jay, just keep going, you got it, you got it, you got it. And that really kept me going in those hard moments when, I thought about and did, at sometimes, go get a job at like Walmart or something like that and try another path. I always came back to it because the music, the quality of the music that I was doing, it felt so deep, and I felt it so deep. I just had to go back to it. So coming out of the Youth Entertainment Academy, Brian actually, they knew that we were so talented and we were valuable to that program, so they found ways for us to stay involved. And another one of the mentors said, hey, you know what? I got a guy who wants to check out some beats that you guys got. I gave him a beat tape, on a cassette tape back then. And he played it for a guy named Kenny Williams, who ran a independent hip-hop record label called First Line. He heard one of the beats and wanted to buy it. It was my first beat sale. Sold the beat for $100. And he said, hey, listen, I got a rap crew and I would love for you to be our producer. The main engineer for the crew was a guy by the name of Rashad Muhammad, who became my mentor. Rashad was well connected on the Jersey scene. He knew I had something, after hearing my production. He said, this kid's got something. I think I can take him and develop him, into a great producer. So I started working at the studio, Fourth Quarter Studios. One day he told me to come to the studio. He had something he wanted me to work on. That project ended up being the Fighting Temptations title song with Missy Elliott, Beyoncé, Free, and MC Lyte. I opened it up and I was like, whoa, because at that time, working with Missy was all I wanted to do. So being able to work on this project was like everything that I worked on up to that point coming to fruition. The producer of that project, Sean Bless from the Soul Diggers, I was playing some beats while he was there and caught his attention. So, that led to some conversations, and he invited me over to their studio. That relationship kind of built out, and eventually he said, hey, look, man, we want you to be a part of the team. That was my introduction into the gold mine, Missy Elliott's record label, That Family. And that was the start of pretty much everything. It's tough to know what you don't know, and especially when it comes to, personal development. So, I was a kid. I was like 19, barely 20 years old going into that situation. So I had a lot of growing up to do. Knowing a little bit more about the business I was entering into would have helped me a lot, so that I would be better prepared to transition after my contract ended. Things were just swimming above my head because that was a level of depth in the water that I've never swam in before. And jumping in, there's some sharks in there. So, having those lessons would have been helpful. But I'm glad I made the mistakes and learned in there the hard way, so to speak. Some type of education would have been really helpful to give me a leg up. The best substitute for a formal education is having great mentors. So, I was blessed in that area. The thing that kept me in the room every time was my talent. That was the thing that, allowed me to make the mistakes and be forgiven for those mistakes. So really focusing on my craft and being the best in the room, so to speak, was the thing that really allowed me to keep coming back. But later on, I set myself up in a decent way to be able to be more comfortable financially speaking, and having a little bit of a cushion financially makes the world of difference. So like the first little bit of money I made from, some placements that I had gotten, I burned right through it. I remember, we got a really cool check from a project we did. For me, it was at the time, the biggest check I had seen. I think it was maybe like 15,000 or something like that. The first thing I did was went to the mall. My partner and I, we're just buying everything, sneakers, jewelry. I got my ears pierced for the first time, and my dream was to like have some yellow diamonds like Pharrell, so I got those. And after a few times of doing that, I learned that, hey, these checks don't come like water. I started being a little bit smarter with my finances, and I started my first LLC. Going through that process taught me about saving, and putting some money to the side and things like that. So after that, I had a little bit more of a cushion that helped me. And then I had some publishing opportunities and things like that. So, it gave me a little bit of a backing where I was able to be a little bit more comfortable as I was trying to keep up with my peers who, were making millions. So after I joined the production team with Missy, it was a flood of opportunities. Missy had been, she just came off the This Is Not a Test album, and she was working on her new project. We were going up to Missy's house pretty often she liked for us to work at her house, wants to come down and grab 20 beats and burn through those and so on and so forth. Missy's very impromptu. So we were working on an opportunity one time for one of her artists. I was invited to be a background singer. I was kind of reluctant because, I sing pretty well, but I'm not a singer, a sanger, as we say. She wanted us all to just kind of do our own thing. Like, let me hear you, let me hear you, let me hear you. As much of a performer as I am, I hate singing in front of people. She called me Johnny Gill. She said, all right, Johnny, let me hear what you got. At that time, I tended to hold back, what I could truly do for different reasons, maybe fear of, outshining somebody or maybe not being good enough or whatever the case. But I didn't do all I could do. And I can tell on Missy's face that she wasn't as impressed, as she was with, the other guys. And I think that haunted me because I knew I could have did more. I could have gave a little bit more oomph in my performance. And that's what she was looking for. And I had it within me, but for whatever reason, I held back. And for years, I used to return to that situation and look into it and say, why did I hold back? But what that did was it sparked something in me to say, from now on, I'm giving everything I got. I'm giving everything I got. I'm always going to give 100% because I never wanted to feel like that again. I never wanted to feel like, what if I would have given it my all? From that moment, everything I did, I gave it a whole thing, and which is why, I tatted Flame on myself, and, my name Jay Storm. I'm always going to turn my flame on and ignite the room if I can, One of the sayings I have is, don't go into a room expecting to get it all. It's better to just be involved. I played a very small part of the record, What's It Gonna Be? However, that record led to being on 4 different projects. It was on Beyonce's first album, Dangerously in Love. It ended up being on the Destiny Fulfilled album. It ended up being on her Live at Wembley album. Having the wherewithal enough to be like, well, I didn't do the whole beat, so I don't care, So I think, those type of lessons, really learning how to collaborate and be part of a team is what sustained me for, even to this day. I love the team process. And by myself, I've had very little success. I think if you master the skill of building relationships, you'll have way more success than your talent alone can bring you. 2008, the recession hit. I had landed a bunch of great placements. My catalog was really looking good. I had some huge names behind me. I was just coming out of my contract with Soul Diggers and Missy Elliott, and I had great relationships with Bad Boy, Jive Records. But the recession hit and everything shut down. You go from, working with Missy Elliott, Beyoncé, to Pink and Gwen Stefani and all of these other big names. And what I realized once the recession hit and the label shut everything down, I had to reset. And that almost mentally, really kind of wiped me out, because they have a term for it called goalpost syndrome, where you get to one level and before you can even settle there, you've already gone on to the next thing. So for me, in my mind, I'm already like, this huge record label executive. I'm that guy, you know what I mean? I'm ready to be that guy. For everything to crash and wipe out and for me to have to start all over again was almost devastating. At that time, New York was the epicenter of the business of music, and everything had slowly but surely started to move to LA and Atlanta. So for me, it was only, 2 options. Well, I chose Nashville. Nobody in Nashville knew who I was, and because Nashville is predominantly country, nobody really cared that I was, doing my thing in R&B and pop music. So I had to start slowly but surely, and it forced me to really see what I was made of and cut my teeth all over again. I definitely got what I was asking for when I asked for an opportunity to have a fresh start. I ventured into management. I came up with the idea to manage producers and songwriters. So I formed Power Move Management Group, and I signed my first handful of producers and one particular songwriter named Ryan Yates, really talented songwriter. And we had quickly developed some really great relationships. That situation was challenging because I never officially managed anyone. As a production company, you kind of manage people, but really going into management was really challenging, and it pushed me to another level. But it showed me that, when you really commit to something and you really put all your skills and talent into something, you can and most likely will be successful. I was able to acquire some really good partnerships with Sony Music, and it led me into an international space. So I never really expected to be partnering with these international divisions of the record labels, and it really opened up a whole other door of opportunities for me, and showed me that there's a whole other world that I can open up, because when you have a level of success, you think that's as high as it's going to get. But as they say, you're a big fish in a little pond. You got to go to a bigger pond. So jumping into a bigger pond really allowed me the space to really explore a whole other area of skill set and opportunity. Making it, to me, is been tossed out of my vocabulary, because the top of every mountain is always the bottom of another one. It's not so much about getting to a point. It's really about the climb, and really learning how to become stronger as you're climbing up each mountain. And that's what it is for me. So making it, to me, is once I reach a goal, I now stop and I gauge my growth on that process. What did I learn? That's the making it part for me. When I can look at something I've done, that encourages me to get ready to start my next journey on my next mountain, because I know I'm better prepared to take on that challenge. I'm blessed to be in the career path that I'm in, because it allows me a permanent outlet of creation. When you get caught up, you got to find those moments to do the thing that got you where you are. Don't forsake your foundation. You know what I mean? Whatever it is, always go back to the foundation. And for me, that's, like I said, my talent always kept me in the room. I have to go back to that, and I have to continue to make sure that I stay as dope as possible. That way, when I hit play, those beats, those songs, I always want to remain impressive in that area. I preach all the time that you have to network across. We always think that the opportunity is going to come from above, that person we're looking up to reach down and pull us up, when really it's the person next to you. Because when you're at that level, you don't understand that this is a journey. This is years in the making. In the same journey that you're on, there's 20 people on that same journey, and out of those 20 people, a few of them are going to do something impactful. So instead of looking up, lock arms with the people across from you. They'll bring you up with them, or you'll be the one to bring others up. So if you're in school, or if you're in any programs, make sure you network across, and lock arms with the people next to you who, do something that you don't do. Like, for instance, if you make beats, lock arms with the up and coming songwriter. Don't just send all of your tracks to the DM of, whoever the hottest songwriter is. Help that songwriter develop, or this engineer, or whatever the case. Lock arms, and you guys will grow together. Next thing you know, you're that powerhouse team, that is taking over the industry, and everybody will come to you for that next hit. I subscribe to the notion of always going into it like it's your first day. A lot of people meet me, by the time they find out what I do or what I've done, they're like, oh my God, and you've never said anything about it. My biggest thing in my life is becoming the best student possible. So I always go into everything as a student. I'm always going into everything to learn and to grow. And in order for me to do that, I'm looking at my counterparts to see, what I can get from you, like what I can learn from you. So that's been, my key to continuing to grow. I'm always looking to absorb and to learn from people. And I'll give you a quick story. I learned this lesson in a moment of arrogance. I was at SAE, and by the time I went to SAE, I was already Grammy nominated and all of this stuff, and worked on all these big projects. So I thought I knew it all. I'm like, what are they gonna teach me? I mean, blah 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 blah. I was in a session on the Neve board, and my instructor came in, and he saw that I was struggling to line up the drums. He says, why are you doing it that way? I says, what do you mean? This is how you do it. He says, no, you don't know how to use elastic audio? I said, there? He showed me how to use elastic audio and how to align, my waves and things like that. Life changing. It changed the game for me. It changed everything for me. Like, And from that moment on, it was such a humbling moment, and I was so grateful for that moment. As stupid as I felt, I was grateful for that moment because it showed me that I have so much more to learn. And at that time, I had been using Pro Tools for years. Even when you think you're talking to a fool, be quiet, because there's something you can learn even in that moment. Well, as we know, technology is changing a lot in our industry. Music is a human invention. It's nature, but it's a human invention as far as how we perceive it, right? So the one thing that can't be replaced is the human element. Even in the music that I'm incorporating, I always encourage to have some type of organic compound. You know, there's a certain feel and a certain swing to incorporating a human element that AI and computer generated sound or technology just can't emulate. Even like, for instance, as good as CGI has gotten, it's always something a little bit off that lets you know it's not quite human. And it's the same way with sound. I can't remember a comedian. He said, you know, when the Chrysler 300 came out, everyone was like, "Oh my God, it looks just like a Bentley. It looks identical to a Bentley." He said, "Yeah, until a Bentley pulls up," right? So I think if you take that concept and just apply it, always add something organic. You know, whether it's a live guitar player, whether it's a live bass, or it's something. I think if you add that human element into it, you'll always have something that feels real and feels organic and can connect with people's soul, versus just relying on the algorithm or the programming to do the job for you. I think we all have that moment where we want to go back and give ourselves that "if I knew then what I know now." So I do that a lot in my mind, and I think the biggest thing for me wouldn't be so much in the music. I would definitely give myself some tools to help develop myself as a man and as a person. And I think those things would have helped me just growing up in the music industry, which is what I did. I was a kid. So really growing up and having a healthier mental experience. What I recognize now that was the most impactful thing in my career was having that good mentorship. It really helped me learn those lessons that you really can't learn anywhere else but having that experience. And putting myself, around good mentors allowed me to grow up, essentially, and become the man that I needed to be. Go!